free to leave. You won't bother me. During question times, if you don't want to talk about it anymore, the safe word is pineapples. If someone starts getting into some area, Jordan, that no one wants to go into, just be like, oh, pineapples, I had enough, and Jordan will stop talking, right?
Yeah.
Can we just remove Jordan from the room to begin with?
And also, Jordan will cease from making any other jokes, right?
Just sit here and giggle. It's okay.
Right? All right, thanks, cool. Well, my name is Courtney Morrow, and I have done the Magnum project. Now, Magnum is a brand of condom, but it's not one that I use. I just thought that it'd be a pretty cool name for my life project. And also, if used incorrectly, Magnums are labeled for gun, so if used incorrectly, condoms can be as deadly as guns. All right, and I thought this would be a fun little intro.
Bazoo condoms. Fun, sexy, safe.
Alright, the video was also kind of the inspiration. Ella, make it come back. For my project. Okay, some of the reasons I decided to do this project. Children. As a college student, I barely have time to eat and sleep. I did not want to add children into my equation, so condoms would be a good way to prevent that. As most of you in here should know, this is an age-appropriate conversation. STDs and STIs are a big problem in the community, especially HIV and AIDS. It's a pretty big issue among most African Americans, especially African American males. But either way, anyone can catch it, no one's safe. But condoms do help you prevent that. Yay, living. Alright, so most of you are wondering how in the world did I get here? Because most of you knew that I was using gummy worms. That's what I presented the last time I was up here. However, I found that one of my peers was doing something very similar. So instead of stealing her thunder, I decided to move on to something else, something that was more interesting to me. And thus we have come to condoms. And I also wanted to make it audience appropriate, and I feel like a lot of you can relate. So, I wanted to test to see if one brand or type of condom would break easier than another brand or type of condom, to see which one would be better for consumer usage. So my null hypothesis is there would be no statistical difference in the brands and types of the condoms. And my alternate, I chose that the Durex brand will require the least amount of force to break. Durex brands are known for being the cheaper kind, not as well known. They don't spend a lot of money on their commercials. Actually, they do, but a majority of them are banned in this country. So, All right. So some of the things I used, of course, for condoms, I had 4 types. Actually, brought visual aids, so pass them around. Feel free to go through the little grab bags. I don't care if you keep them. Actually, do not keep the Durexes. They are expired. I took count. I don't want anyone to take those. But feel free to go through them if you like. The first brand was a Lifestyles King, which is just an extra large condom. I used the Trust X extra large condom. They're extra strength. I used another brand of Trust X, which is a banana flavored condom. And I also used Durex Avanti, which is a thin, non-latex condom, and it's also the Durex brand. And what I originally wanted to use were all the same brand and different types, or all different different brands, but they're all the same type. However, due to the pricing of most condoms, I got these for free at Health Services, and this is what they gave me. So, it's one of my limitations within my project. But I also use this as a pocket scale to measure the amounts of the masses that I would use to measure force on the condom. And these are the masses that I used during my experiment. They're like a 200, 150. I also had some that were smaller amounts, like maybe 1s and 5s, and they're all in grams. And I also used some regular items like scissors, rulers, some pins, stuff like that. Okay, basically what I did is first I unraveled one and I measured the total length of it, like that. And then after that I cut them into rectangles because what I wanted to do was measure force per area. So I would cut them into rectangles that are like 3 by 7 centimeters. And what I did is I tied the top half to a bar that I had in my bathroom, like a power bar. And the bottom half I tied a basket onto that I measured the mass of, and I would just put the masses into the basket until one of them breaks. Alright, so this is the part where I tell you all of my data and what happened with the experiment. Unfortunately, I can't. My data turned out to be inconclusive. So, what happened was I found out that it would take an incredible amount of force to break one of these things, even in the little strips. Like, I broke strings, I broke the basket, I broke everything else instead of the condom. And so I thought maybe it was a flaw in my procedure, and I tried to do a different one. Well, I was very limited in the procedures that I could use for my condoms because in an experiment you want most things to be controlled and most things to be measurable, which I found that was a problem also. The way I wanted to do it was to just hang masses on it and let gravity be, my main force on it, but apparently that would not work. And I couldn't just pull on it because I couldn't measure how much force I was putting into it myself. So there was a lot of ways to break a condom, but not a lot of ways to measure it. That was the problem I ran into. But I did make some other observations during my experiment. For example, some of them dried out much more quickly than the others. For example, the Durex brand, that one dried out the fastest. And what I thought would be an interesting experiment to move on from this would be how long it took for one of them to dry out versus the ones that stayed wet the longest or lubricated. And I also wanted to figure out if maybe that had an effect on the breakage. Another observation I made was personal opinions. I told a lot of people about this to see if I could get some help in trying to find a way to break it. A lot of people I found out, they tried to give me input on why they wouldn't break. I asked my friends, and they're just like, oh, of course your experiment didn't work. Condoms aren't made to break that way. And I asked them why, and I was just like, because you need force. So I was like, okay. And then we had some people who would try to give me advice on how to break them. Like someone told me to stick them in an oven and get some heat on them and see if they broke easier, as if you left them in your car overnight. One, your car doesn't get hotter than about 180 degrees, no matter how hot it is outside. And then two, a lot of these brands are different. Like, they're made of different materials. Like, I have a non-latex one, and I also have a flavored one. So I couldn't use temperature as a constant change for all of them. It would affect each material differently, so it really wouldn't be a controlled experiment as I would like it to be. And then, last but not least, I would still use this project as a classroom experiment. Okay. Obviously, in a high school classroom, because that'd be the appropriate age group, hopefully seniors or something like that. And also it ought to be in school that has a sex ed program and wouldn't mind me doing this project. But I wanted to use it because this is a project that really does explain the nature of science, like independent versus dependent variable control versus uncontrolled experiments. And in the end, I didn't get an answer, but that's okay. It happens a lot in science. When you do a science experiment, you won't always get an answer. So I still would like to use this. And also, that would be in a science class, but you could use it in an education class because you can learn a lot about misconceptions and how people get them. Because I got a lot of people to tell me a lot of things that really didn't make sense. Like one of my friends told me I couldn't break it the way I was doing it because gravity wasn't a force. And apparently that force is totally different than, I guess, a sex force, but whatever. Someone told me that I didn't have enough air in the condoms, and that's why they broke. There was an air factor. So I would use this in an education class to teach people about misconceptions and how you could fix that. And that's my presentation. Questions?
Why would you even think about using this in high school when it didn't work?
That's exactly my point. In
Well,
high schools,
I'm sitting here saying this is a whole lot of nothing. There's no data. There's nothing. So what's the research project?
well, the research, the project was in setting it up, finding your variables, and discovering that it didn't work. I would like to still use that because in high schools, you use guided labs that you already know the answer to. So you're really not doing any science projects, you're just following the book. And so I would like to use this to show that it's okay that you didn't get an answer.
Okay.
And that you can fix a project, and then I found other projects I could do from this.
Okay, let's go back to your null hypothesis.
Okay.
I'm troubled by that.
Okay.
There will be no statistical difference in the brands or types of condoms.
And then I kind of stopped typing, but I was supposed to keep typing, and the amount of force it takes to break it, I didn't.
Okay, because
Did not notice
there's
that
a
I
lot of
stopped.
statistical difference there. Different weights, different sizes, different colors, that's statistical difference. So,
Yeah, I didn't mean to write it that way. I guess there was some confusion in that. I did not mean. That was a
Okay.
mistake on my part. Any other questions? Leanne, anybody else?
One of my notes was about how it's a solid point how experiments don't work sometimes. So
Exactly. Because this experiment took a long time, and I guess I would have gone into my extra experiments, but everyone wanted to be done today, so I didn't have time to do my extra experiments like I wanted to.